The streets of Port Harcourt were always buzzing, but there was one place that stood out: the famous Mama Nengi's kitchen. No matter the time of day, her restaurant was always filled with customers, especially wealthy men who seemed to be addicted to her food. The aroma of her steaming soups drifted through the air, pulling people in like a magnet. But what no one knew was that behind the delicious flavors and the endless crowd of customers, there was a dark, horrifying secret boiling inside one of her pots. One fateful evening, a young man named Amika made a shocking discovery, one that would change everything. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the busy streets. Mama Nengi's kitchen was packed as usual, the clatter of plates and spoons mixing with the loud chatter of satisfied customers. Men in suits, businessmen, and politicians sat at the wooden tables, laughing as they enjoyed their steaming bowls of pepper soup, jollof rice, and pounded yam. Emeka, a struggling university student, stood outside the restaurant, staring at the lively scene inside. He had heard rumors about Mama Nengi's food, that it had a special ingredient that made people come back again and again. Some even claimed it was not ordinary spices that made the soup so irresistible. He shook his head, dismissing the gossip. Hunger had a way of making a man ignore stories. With only a few naira left in his pocket, he stepped inside. "Good evening, Mama Nengi," he greeted the plump, dark-skinned woman behind the counter. She had a bright smile, but there was something unsettling about her piercing eyes. "My son, welcome," she beamed. "What will you eat today? My special goat meat pepper soup?" Emeka hesitated. He had eaten goat meat pepper soup before, but never like this. He had once tasted a spoonful from his friend's plate, and the flavor had stayed on his tongue for days, haunting him, making him crave it. "Yes, Mama, give me a plate." Mama Nengi's gold bangles jingled as she scooped a generous portion into a bowl. She placed it before him, and the rich aroma filled his nostrils. Emeka took a deep breath, then picked up his spoon. Just as he was about to take the first sip, a loud scream tore through the restaurant. "Jesus! Mama Nengi, what is this?" The room fell silent. Every head turned toward the source of the scream. A young kitchen worker named Boma stood near the massive cooking pot, his hands shaking, his face pale with shock. Mama Nengi's eyes darkened. "What nonsense is this, Boma?" she hissed, stepping toward him. Boma pointed a trembling finger at the pot, his lips quivering. There is something inside the soup." The customers, curious and alarmed, rushed toward the pot. Emeka felt his stomach tighten as he followed. Mama Nengi's normally calm face had turned cold. One of the men, a wealthy businessman named Chief Okoro, peered inside. He suddenly staggered backward, his hands flying to his mouth as he fought to hold back the bile rising in his throat. "Blood of Jesus!" he gasped. Emeka pushed forward and looked into the pot. His heart nearly stopped. Floating in the rich, bubbling broth, half submerged among pieces of meat and bone, was something that should never have been there. A human head. A severed head, eyes still open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. The room erupted into chaos. Women screamed, chairs tumbled over, and the wealthy men who had once eaten greedily at Mama Nengi's kitchen now pushed and shoved each other, trying to escape. Mama Nengi, however, did not move. She stood there, her expression unreadable, her lips pressed together in a thin line. Then, slowly, she wiped her hands on her apron and turned to face the panicked crowd. "What is the meaning of this?" she said, her voice calm, almost amused. Emeka couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Mama Nengi, there is a human head in your soup. Who is this person? What have you been feeding people?" A sinister smile touched the corners of her lips. "And yet, you all have been eating and enjoying it, haven't you?" The silence that followed was more terrifying than the screams. Then, suddenly, Mama Nengi turned and bolted toward the back door. "Catch her!" someone shouted, but she was fast. Too fast. Emeka ran after her, his mind racing. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary woman. And whatever dark secrets she had been hiding in her kitchen, they were about to be exposed. Emeka's heart pounded as he sprinted after Mama Nengi. She moved swiftly, her feet barely making a sound as she pushed through the narrow alley behind the restaurant. The air smelled of rotting food and smoke, but none of that mattered. He had to catch her. "Stop her!" he shouted, hoping someone would block her escape. But the people in the market, startled by the commotion, only stared in confusion. Mama Nengi dashed past wooden stalls, knocking over baskets of tomatoes and dried fish. She reached a rusty gate and yanked it open. Just as she was about to slip through, a strong hand grabbed her arm. "Where do you think you're going, Mama Nengi?" It was Officer Danjuma, one of the local policemen. He was built like a boxer with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind him, two more officers appeared, their faces grim. Mama Nengi froze for a second. Then, without warning, she swung at Danjuma, her long nails clawing at his face. "Argh!" he grunted, staggering back. She shoved him aside and ran. Bang! A gunshot echoed through the alley. Mama Nengi stopped in her tracks. The bullet had missed her, but she knew there would be no second warning. Slowly, she raised her hands. Danjuma wiped the blood from his cheek and stepped forward, his gun still aimed at her. "You are under arrest for murder and whatever else we find in that cursed kitchen of yours." The crowd that had gathered gasped. Whispers filled the air. "Arrest her!" someone shouted. Two officers grabbed Mama Nengi's arms and pulled her toward a waiting police van. She did not resist, but there was something unsettling about the way she smiled. As the van drove off, Emeka let out a shaky breath. It was over. Or so he thought. Inside the police station, tension hung thick in the air. The station was small, with flickering fluorescent lights and rusting metal desks. Mama Nengi sat in the interrogation room, her hands cuffed to the table. Across from her, Officer Danjuma and another detective, Inspector Chika, studied her. "You better start talking, Mama Nengi," Danjuma said. "Whose head was that in your soup?" She smiled. "Which one?" Silence. Chika cleared her throat. "Are you saying there were more?" Mama Nengi leaned forward, the chains on her cuffs clinking. "How do you think my food became the best in the city? Do you think it's ordinary pepper and salt?" Chika's stomach turned. "You're telling me you've been feeding people human meat?" Mama Nengi chuckled. "And they loved it, especially the rich men. They licked their plates and begged for more." Danjuma slammed his fist on the table. "Enough of this nonsense. Who were your victims? Where are their bodies?" Mama Nengi tilted her head. "Oh, officer, if I tell you, do you promise to still eat at my restaurant?" Chika's skin crawled. She had dealt with criminals before, armed robbers, corrupt politicians, but this was different. This woman was something else, a monster hiding behind a smile. "We checked your kitchen," Danjuma said, his voice lower now. "We found bones, too many to count." Mama Nengi's smile faltered for the first time. Danjuma continued, his tone sharp. "We also found a list, names, dozens of them. Some are missing people, some are men who've mysteriously vanished after eating at your restaurant." Chika slid the list in front of her. "Explain this." Mama Nengi stared at it for a moment, then let out a soft laugh. "I didn't work alone." Danjuma's eyes narrowed. "Who helped you?" She leaned back, her smile returning. "Do you really think I could do all this by myself? Kill them, chop them up, cook them, serve them?" Chika swallowed hard. The thought of it was enough to make her nauseous. Mama Nengi continued, "There are others, people you wouldn't suspect, people you might even know." Danjuma and Chika exchanged a glance. This was bigger than they had thought. "Give us names," Chika demanded. Mama Nengi smirked. "Oh, I will, but not for free." Chika folded her arms. "You're already caught. What more do you want?" Mama Nengi's eyes gleamed. "Protection." Danjuma frowned. "From who?" For the first time since her arrest, Mama Nengi looked nervous. She glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. "They're coming for me." A chill ran down Chika's spine. "Who?" Mama Nengi's lips pressed together. "The ones who made me do this." Danjuma slammed the table again. "You think you can play games with us?" Mama Nengi leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you don't believe me, wait until midnight." Danjuma shook his head, frustrated. "Take her to the holding cell," he ordered. The officers dragged Mama Nengi away, but before she disappeared down the hallway, she turned back, her eyes locking onto Chika's. "Midnight," she repeated. "That's when you'll understand." A shiver ran down Chika's spine. She didn't know why, but she had a terrible feeling that Mama Nengi wasn't lying. The police station was quiet that night, too quiet. Chika sat at her desk, her eyes flickering between reports and the clock on the wall. 11:47 p.m. Mama Nengi's words echoed in her mind. Wait until midnight. She didn't want to admit it, but she was uneasy. The air inside the station felt off. Even Officer Danjuma, usually fearless, had been glancing over his shoulder more than usual. The other officers tried to act normal, but the tension was thick. The ones on night duty kept their radios close, their hands resting near their guns. Something about Mama Nengi's warning had unsettled them all. Chica exhaled sharply and stood. She had to shake this feeling off. It was just a criminal playing mind games. Right? She decided to check on Mama Nengi. The holding cells were dimly lit, the heavy iron bars casting long shadows on the floor. Chica walked slowly, her footsteps echoing through the hallway. She stopped in front of Mama Nengi's cell. The woman sat on the small bench inside, her hands resting on her lap. Her face was calm, too calm. "You're still awake," Chica noted. Mama Nengi slowly lifted her head, her lips curling into that eerie smile. "So are you." Chica gritted her teeth. "Enough games. Who are you talking about? Who's coming?" Mama Nengi chuckled. "You'll see." Chica clenched her fists. "You don't scare me." "Good," Mama Nengi said, tilting her head. "Because you're going to need all the courage you have." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then they went out completely. Darkness swallowed the station. A second later, a scream rang out. Chica spun around, her heart hammering. The scream came from the front of the station. Then another. Gunshots, shouting, chaos. Chica reached for her gun and bolted toward the commotion. The corridor was pitch black, but she could hear the sound of boots running. "Danjuma?" she called out. No answer. She rushed forward, her pulse racing. When she reached the main room, she froze. The front doors were wide open, papers scattered across the floor. The metal filing cabinets were overturned. The officers who had been at the front desk were gone, vanished. A metallic scent filled the air, blood. Her breath quickened. She turned her head toward the exit, and that's when she saw them. Men dressed in black, their faces covered, their eyes cold. They moved like shadows, swift and silent. One of them held a machete, another had a gun. Chica gripped her weapon. "Who are you?" The tallest of them stepped forward. His voice was deep, steady. "We've come for her." Chica didn't need to ask who he meant. Mama Nengi. She raised her gun. "She's in police custody. You're not taking her." The man chuckled. "Oh, officer, you don't understand." He took another step forward. Chica fired. Bang! The bullet hit his chest. He didn't fall, didn't even flinch. Her stomach dropped. Another officer, panting and wounded, stumbled into the room. "Chica, we have to." A gunshot rang out. The officer collapsed. Dead. Chica's breath hitched. The men in black closed in. "Give her to us," the leader said, "and we'll leave you alive." Chica's mind raced. Who were these people? She took a step back, her grip tightening on her gun. Then she heard something behind her, a soft chuckle. She turned. Mama Nengi was standing at the entrance of the hallway. She wasn't in handcuffs anymore. Her smile widened. "I told you, officer." Chica swallowed. Mama Nengi's voice was almost a whisper. They were always coming. Chica's hands trembled as she aimed her gun between Mama Nengi and the men in black. The air inside the station was thick with tension, the metallic scent of blood filling her nostrils. The men stood like statues, waiting. Mama Nengi, free from her cuffs, stretched her arms like a woman who had just woken from a peaceful nap. "How?" Chica stammered. "How did you get out?" Mama Nengi turned to her with that eerie smile. "Do you think I would be locked up forever? That was never the plan." Chica's mind raced. The station had been infiltrated. Officers were missing or dead. The men in black weren't ordinary criminals. This was bigger than she had imagined. Danjuma stumbled into the room, blood seeping from a wound on his forehead. He took one look at the scene and raised his gun. "What the hell is going on?" Mama Nengi exhaled, almost disappointed. "You still don't get it, do you?" She glanced at the men in black. "Tell them." The tallest man stepped forward. "She is one of us." Danjuma and Chica exchanged a horrified look. The man continued. "Mama Nengi was never working alone. She was only fulfilling her duty." "Duty?" Chica spat. "Cooking human flesh and feeding it to people?" The man chuckled. "You see it as a crime. We see it as balance, a service to those who deserve more than ordinary food." Chica felt sick. "Who are you?" "We are everywhere," the man replied. In the highest offices, in the wealthiest homes. The men who ate at Mama Nengi's restaurant were not ordinary men. They knew what they were eating. They craved it. Danjuma's grip on his gun tightened. "You're lying." Mama Nengi sighed. Poor officers, so blind to how the world really works. Chica could barely breathe. The restaurant had always been packed with powerful, wealthy men. Now it made sense. They had known. They had wanted it. Danjuma turned to the men in black. "Why are you here? Why attack the station?" The leader gave him a cold stare. "To collect what belongs to us." He tilted his head toward Mama Nengi. No, Chica said firmly. She's going to trial. Mama Nengi laughed. Oh, Officer Chica, you really think they'll let that happen? Danjuma took a step forward. I don't care who you are. You're not leaving with her. The men in black moved. Gunfire erupted. Danjuma fired first, dropping one of them. Chica shot another, but they kept coming. They were fast, merciless. The station turned into a war zone. Chica ducked behind a desk, reloading her gun. She peeked over and saw Mama Nengi calmly walking through the chaos, unfazed. No, Chica aimed at her and pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. Mama Nengi turned, smiled, and walked toward the exit. Chica scrambled for another magazine, but before she could reload, a sharp pain exploded in her side. One of the men had tackled her, knocking the wind out of her lungs. She struggled, but his grip was like iron. Through blurred vision, she saw Mama Nengi step outside. A sleek black car was waiting. The door opened. She got in. The car sped off into the night. The men in black retreated, leaving behind a bloodbath. Chica lay on the cold floor, pain radiating through her body. Danjuma crawled toward her, blood dripping down his face. The station was ruined. Bodies of officers lay motionless. Sirens wailed in the distance, but it was too late. Mama Nengi was gone. Danjuma coughed, his voice hoarse. We have to find her. Chica closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. Mama Nengi was no ordinary killer, and now she was free.